Well, hello, my dear friends. It is wonderful, wonderful to be back after a an enforced break from the channel, thanks to I'm not sure what it was, a bit of a virus, a bit of a cold. I don't know, but yeah, I was slightly unwell for just over a week and a bit, week and a half or so. Extremely fatigued, tired, was the biggest problem, which was affecting an existing problem which I have, which is a minor heart problem, which is I'm waiting, forever waiting, our wonderful NHS here in Great Britain to get around to fixing. They will, but it's a question of waiting. Anyway, I'm back, and I felt, well, I was thinking about what I would move on to this time after a gap, and I thought, well, I think I deserve, or you deserve, we deserve something a bit special, if the dreaded YouTube algorithm will allow it, if copyright will allow it. That's always a big if. And I thought, well, what have I not really done on the channel? There's been quite a lot of opera, which has been wonderful. Love opera. I know a lot of you do. And we've had other, we've had concertos, we've had sonatas, keyboard sonatas, and a good range of things, really. But I thought most of it has been, the 19th century, late 18th century, classical, into the Romantic period sort of stuff, really. The sort of standard fare that we all love. And I hope for people who don't, or new to classical music, people might like and think, spark their interest, and so they can sort of choose and pick what else I'd like to see on the channel, really, to widen their knowledge, I suppose, or tastes. I don't know, but that's been the general sort of plan. But I, and perhaps you, I don't know, but although I love all of that, of course, I love Beethoven, love Mozart, love Chopin, love Wagner, all of the greats, Verdi. What I really love, my main love, is the Baroque. I love the Baroque. I love Baroque composers. I love Baroque music, and of course, it's where much of it, nearly all of it, has its roots, one way or another, particularly opera. And I thought, well, what I'll try and do then, as a bit of a special sort of, video, is try and again to do a 3-in-1 if I can. So if there are bits of the 3 that I'm intending to upload cut or not see it, it's because YouTube and the copyright algorithm hasn't allowed it. So pretty much what happened with my previous Maria Callas video, intended to be 3, ended up hitting copyright claims constantly, so I could only sort of do the 1, unfortunately, so I had to cut the video down, which was heartbreaking, all the work I put in. So anyway, I thought we'd go back to the Baroque, where it started, really. I thought I'll try and do a 3-in-1 chronologically, maybe for people who aren't particularly au fait with Baroque opera, where it started, really. The operas we'd know, or sort of form and type we'd know, or understand and recognise as opera today, as listeners. So I'm going to start with Monteverdi. Monteverdi, if you don't know, was born in the late 16th century and died in around about the mid 17th century. So you're talking about the very late Renaissance into the early Baroque, basically, period. And this is really where a lot of people, musicologists, sort of accept where opera in the form we know it began, really, or would understand it began. There were operas written before Monteverdi. I've got the write up here because my memory is terrible. I'll never remember it. So we're going to watch L Orfeo, which is basically based on. Well, I'll tell you here now. I'll tell you now. Let's see. It's based on the Greek legend of Orpheus and tells the story of his descent into Hades, hell, and his fruitless attempt to bring back his dead bride, Eurydice, back to the living world. It was written in 1607 for a court performance during the annual carnival at Mantua. And it goes on to say that, yes, it's not the first opera written, really. Jacopo Peri's Daphne is generally recognised as the first work in the opera genre, and the earliest surviving opera is Peri's Eurydice. L'Orfeo is the earliest that is still regularly performed, so you might, at some point, maybe you have already see a performance of L'Orfeo. I've actually heard Peri's Eurydice on a historic recording many years ago, which is an interesting experience. So yes, this is going to be, and this, I mean, there's many there's many performances I could have chosen. I'm just going to choose the opening, basically, of the opera and the introduction. So it's not. I think it's about 8-9 minutes altogether, and then we're going to move on to our next composer chronologically in our beginnings of opera video today. So this is going to be Jordi Savall, fantastic conductor. Sorry, I think he's a viola da gamba player as well, sort of virtuoso. All on period instruments. This is one of my favourite performances of any opera, actually, because it's staged amazingly. Great costumes, even for the orchestra and the conductor, Jordi. I should say. See, I'm English, so I say Geordie because in England, a Geordie is someone from Newcastle. But I realise, I think Jordi Savall's Spanish, isn't he? So it used to be Jordi, shouldn't I? I think. And the lady you'll see singing on the stage is his late wife, whose name escapes me at the moment. Let me see if I can find it. Again, I'd usually remember this if I wasn't shooting the video, but as soon as I turn the camera on, complete mental block. Let's see. Oops. Here we go. Sorry about the silence. Montserrat Figueres, yeah, that's right. He unfortunately passed in 2011, so I'm not exactly sure when this recording's from, but I wouldn't have thought it was very long before that. It looks quite contemporary, quite new. So that's enough of me gabbing. Let's dive into L'Orfeo with Jordi Savall and Monteverdi. 3, 2, 1. place to stop it. So, lovely. I don't know. I can't explain it. It's just, I think what I love about it, I love about baroque music, baroque opera, that period, and you heard it there, is it's sort of, it's simple, comparatively somewhat, 19th century sort of classical sort of symphonies and things. Simple. It's sort of like the well, there's a chef called Jacques Pepin who I love watching. Could cook anything, a bit of a legend. And I watched one of his videos, and he said people always ask me what's my favourite dish for me to eat, and he said actually, even though I could cook anything, all this stuff, amazing stuff, my favourite thing is good bread and butter. And I think that's a good analogy. It's good bread and butter. It's the basis, the basic. You can't really go wrong, and it's lovely. I like it. I'm sure some of you like it. So that was fantastic. That was lovely. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what year this production was. Let's have a look, so we can find out before we move on to our next early opera, or our next piece from an early opera. Orfeo. Hang on. I can spell, that help, wouldn't it? Let's have a see if it will tell me. Not. No, I can't find it quickly, so I'll stick it, if I can find out, I'll stick it down in the box below with the details of where and when this performance is. It's probably on DVD, I would have thought. In fact, I'm sure it is, because I think I was going to get it for myself a few Christmases ago and didn't in the end. I got my Wagner Meistersinger with Johann Botha instead. Right, so we have a little bit of a semi-professionally edited split here. I want to move on to the next composer. So I'm back. Well, now we move on to well, this is around about 70 years later now. We've jumped forward the best part of a decade almost to the 1680s, 1688ish, and we've also jumped from Mantua in Italy to London, England, and Henry Purcell. And we're about to listen to Dame Janet Baker sing possibly her most well-known performance aria. Again, I've gone black. When I Am Laid in Earth, which is from Dido and Aeneas, Purcell's famous opera. As I said, from about 1688-ish. Again, another classical, based on another classical story, a myth, if you like, as a lot of Baroque opera often was. But this is a fantastic aria, fantastically sung. And although still in the 17th century, still in an early opera style, so opera only been around for what, 80 years at this point, as we would call opera. It's different. You can see the style is very different to what we just watched. a bit less antiquated, I suppose you'd say. So anyway, let's go again. 3, 2, 1. hang on a minute. We move on to something else. You may well have heard that before if you're not familiar with Dido and Aeneas, Purcell. It's been used quite a lot in bits of film, television, series, adverts and things. I doubt if that performance was using period instruments. It looked like it was from the 50s, perhaps late 50s, very early 60s perhaps, but by which time you wouldn't have normally expected to see or hear a period instrument performance. The previous video we saw, Monteverdi with the Orchestra, you'll notice period, you can sort of tell really, because period instruments literally look different and they sound different to modern instruments. The violins have a shorter fingerboard. Usually the players don't have a shoulder rest. They don't use one of these as modern violinists do for comfort. The whole idea is to get back to as close to the sound, basically, as you would have heard during the baroque performance period. So yeah, I don't think that was. We're going to move on now to our final, and let's hope YouTube's let me put these two up so far. Our final of our early operas chronologically, of the three. So I'll have a short cut here and I'll be right back. So here we are back for the final instalment, if it's all gone up, as we hope. Our final instalment, our final composer of the baroque period, the baroque opera. Although we now move to France, to Paris, and we now are 50 years on from Henry Purcell and Dido and Aeneas. This is now 1735, and we are about to listen to an excerpt from, again, forgive my French, Indes Galantes by Jean-Philippe Rameau, and this is going to be Le Sauvage, I think, the first part of Le Sauvage, basically the Americas. This part is based in. I'll just read you what it says here about Indes Galantes. Indes Galantes is an opera by Jean-Philippe Rameau with a libretto by Louis Fuselier. Probably not saying that right. It takes the form of an opera ballet with a prologue and 4 entrees, following an allegorical prologue. The 4 entrees have distinct and separate plots, but are unified by the theme of love in exotic places. Now, this is the important thing to note here. We've now moved from the 17th century. Rameau sort of he was born in the 1780s, around about the same time the last opera, Dido and Aeneas, was first performed and written, and goes straight into all the way through to the 1760s when he dies. So he sort of now takes us from the 16th century into the 18th century, first part of the 18th century, creatively, you know, with this. As I say, 1735, Paris. Now, Rameau has, at this point, taken over from the other sort of giant of the time of French opera ballet, Jean-Baptiste Lully, probably saying that wrong, who was, I believe, court composer of the opera and ballet before Rameau. In France, as we've seen Italian opera, we've seen opera in England, quite a rare thing. and we're seeing opera in France. Opera in France, the court operas aren't strictly operas. They're a mixture of opera and ballet, basically, as was just described there. So you'd have sections where you'd have entrees, where you'd have singing interspersed with balletic interludes, I suppose. I did originally, I was going to go with Jean-Baptiste Lully and La Bourgeois Gentilhomme, but that he would have been contemporary with Purcell, basically, end of the 17th century, and I thought I'd like to take it up to as close as I could. I'll sort of journey through early opera through the Baroque period, as close as I can up to the sort of beginning of the end of the Baroque and beginning of the classical. Haydn, Mozart, C.P.E. Bach, Carl Philipp Emanuel. So here we are. This is 1735. You are 15, 20 years off of what most musicologists would consider to be the end of the sort of last final part of the Baroque compositional period. Obviously, Bach himself, J.S. Bach, is dead by 1750. So that's really, I suppose, obviously, compositional styles continue. Contrapuntal music continues, and with other composers, but it being fashionable in fashion, I suppose, or just about still in fashion, sort of ended with Bach, really, in his death. Even towards the end of his life, his great music would have been considered, the style would have been considered quite old-fashioned at the time by his contemporaries, younger contemporaries. So anyway, here we go. And you'll notice this is very balletic. This is extremely rhythmic. Has dance in it. It's dance music, really, I suppose, with opera mixed in. So here we go. Indes Galantes, Le Sauvage. 3, 2, 1. ended a little bit abruptly, more abruptly than I thought it would. Great production, isn't it? Great fun production. So yeah, I mean, if we're going to go from Monteverdi, 1607, all the way through until 1735, with Rameau and Indes. Okay, they're all baroque, but I mean completely different in style, totally different. Okay, some of that's to do with not just the passage of time and the development, but also it's to do with the different tastes in different countries. You know, well, I mean, we're all in all of that's going to be all of what we've seen has been produced and written, produced in Europe over what 135 years. And we've only touched on some of the highlights, I suppose, in this video. As I say, I just hope all three have gone up with no problems. If there is one less, if there are two less, there should be three. I've had to cut some. So I think that's it from me. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. I haven't heard many of those for quite a while. I don't get a lot of time to listen to as much music as I'd like to, as I used to. Just being so busy with things, lots of things going on at the moment. 2 nights ago, I don't know if you noticed, you might have noticed me pushing my, I've got something on my, 2 nights ago I managed to nearly slice the end of my finger off. Very nearly. Lost the end of it because I rather foolishly tried to open a can of tuna, not realising that the can opener hadn't done its job, and eventually the lid came off with a bit of persuasion, but it almost took my end of my finger off with it. So yeah, pretty typical me, I'm afraid. Anyway, let's see. I'll see you next time. Stay safe, take care, stay away from that COVID variant. Homegrown here in the UK, unfortunately. I don't. Yeah, let's not go into that. You know, not what any of us wanted to hear, was it? So yeah, not an export from the UK that anyone's proud of. Let's put it that way. So I'll see you next time. Take care.